We're here inside the Art Hauser Center, the site for Game 2 of the 2019 Rogers WHL Championship Series. My name is Taylor Rocca. With me today, Brock Boot. And Brock, we had Game 1 here Friday night in the Art Hauser Center. It goes into the books as a 5-4 victory for the Vancouver Giants. They get off to a roaring start to open the 2019 WHL Championship Series, and they left us with no shortage of things to talk about.
Game 1 was an absolute blast, and if it's any indication of what we have in store for the rest of the series, I think this could go down as a classic between the Raiders and the Giants. It was end-to-end action, especially that second period. Just the goals and the pace of the play was a lot of fun to watch.
Before we get to the second period, really the game started quickly for Vancouver in the first period. Prince Albert got themselves into a little bit of trouble, which I think is going to be a key heading into Game 2. A couple early penalties for Prince Albert put Vancouver on the power play. They're able to capitalize. So, after hearing from head coach Mark Habscheid last night, discipline is going to be a key to the game. For Game 2 here tonight. And then we get into the second period, and that's when things really took off.
A 6-goal second period, a lot of fun. This building was so loud. That being said, it was definitely a tough situation for the Raiders. They seemed to come on a bit at the end. They tied the game up, and then that last minute of play, Vancouver scores 2 goals in quick succession. I think the last one was with about 18 seconds left. And it seemed to be a bit of a killer. The Raiders seemed to be chasing the game after the first, and they just seemed to have gotten there. And then for those 2 goals to go in, the Giants seemed to just take whatever momentum had been lost and carry it forward. And it was proved to be a little bit too tough of a hill to climb for the Raiders in the third.
Now, Jeremy Masella scores a beautiful goal in the third period to get the Raiders back within 1, but ultimately it wasn't enough. And you look back at the score sheet at the end of the night, and you would think the Raiders had put themselves in a pretty good place to win Game 1. Your best players are all over the score sheet. Brett Leeson has a goal. Noah Gregor's on the score sheet. Parker Kelly has a pair of assists, and Dante Hanoun has a really great game. Yet you're still on the wrong side of a 5-4 outcome. Head coach Mark Habscheid said in his post-game after Game 1, Ian Scott wasn't necessarily his sharpest. And, heading into Game 2, there's no question Ian Scott's got to be a little bit better for the Raiders.
He does have to be a bit better. And at the end of the day, Coach Habscheid also said, win as a team, lose as a team. That is very true. And I think the Raiders ultimately, with that first period where they did get outplayed, they looked a little bit nervous, and Habscheid said that as well. There is a lot of energy in this building, and that can be positive or that can be negative at times. And I think the Raiders were maybe a little too amped up for this, and that first period seemed to kind of get away from them. They didn't have any sustained zone pressure, and they weren't able to generate almost any offense in that first period. And when you put yourself down in a hole, you end up chasing the game, and the second period got away from them and maybe didn't get the timely saves, and that will have to change tonight.
Now, let's not take anything away from the Vancouver Giants here. It's easy for us to focus on the Raiders, given that they're at home, and there's talk about the crowd and this atmosphere and this building being tough to play in. But key contributions in Game 1 from the likes of Captain Jared Dimitri, who came out and had a great performance. He found the score sheet. Dawson Holt, another Saskatchewan kid, he came out. He had himself a big night. Vancouver played a great road game. They made good on their opportunities, and they put Prince Albert on their heels. So, if you're the Giants, you've got to like what you did in Game 1, and ultimately you're going to do everything you can to carry it into Game 2. I don't think you really want to change a whole lot if you're the Vancouver Giants. You know that Bowen Byram is going to be Bowen Byram, and he's going to do his thing. He had a couple assists in Game 1. So you've got to like where you're positioned heading into Game 2.
Absolutely, and what impressed me also on the blue line, like we've talked a lot about Bowen Byram and what he brings, but I was really impressed with the performance of Dylan Plouffe and Seth Buffaro, and the way those two were able to log a lot of minutes, but just shut down the Raiders at the key times, especially at the end of the third. Those guys played a lot of minutes and were able to, for the most part, keep Prince Albert to the outside, and when they weren't, David Tendek was there to shut the door.
David Tendek gets the win in Game 1, and now Game 2 becomes all the more important if you're the Prince Albert Raiders. Everybody knows about the 2-3-2 format. Vancouver now has 1 win on the road. They know they're going home for 3 straight, Games 3, 4, and 5. So not to say that there's more pressure on the Raiders at this point, but ultimately there really is more pressure on the Raiders. You don't want to head to Vancouver down 2-0 with 3 games to come on the road.
No, you never want to say it's a must-win in Game 2 of a series, and hypothetically it's not, but it's also going to be a big deal if the Raiders can't get a win on home ice and they have to go back to Vancouver and win at least 2. That's going to be a challenge. The Langley Event Center is going to be rocking as well. So, like you said, the significance of tonight can't be understated.
Will it be the Giants? Will it be the Raiders? Vancouver's got a chance to go up 2-0 and take a commanding lead heading home. The Raiders have an opportunity to draw even. Tune in tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Time from the Art Hauser Center in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. All your action at WHLlive.com.